Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, let's see a positional idea that will change how you see and understand chess. Positional sacrifices, which are different from tactical sacrifices. First, let's see an example of a tactical sacrifice. Later, we'll see examples of positional sacrifice to be able to tell the difference. In this example, is white to move, the king is wide open, so we see a check, right? Now the king has to move, and here we can sacrifice this bishop. So that is a tactical sacrifice. We're distracting the queen from this square. We give a check here, the king moves, and this is checkmate. So that's a tactical sacrifice. It's a short-term forcing sequence that leads to a material gain or a checkmate, like in this example. But what are positional sacrifices? All right, let's see an example of a positional sacrifice. First, white is going to play e5 here. What do you play with black? I think it really depends on who you watch or what you have learned from different YouTubers. Maybe they can recommend just play the safest move, something that you're absolutely sure, which is not advice, it's generally fine. But that's why we are watching this video. So probably the safest move we can play is something like 97, right? It's like a no-brainer. We don't think about it too much. Our knight is safe. But white is better in this line. They can play something like d4 and prospects of going f5 later. They have all the initiative and our pieces are not super active. But that is not even the best move in the position. So after we go here, knight to d7, they can play knight to d4. Same idea as f5. And it gets a little bit strange if I play the computer moves. Here we can trade the bishops. They still have ideas of going here. The bishop is really active, so it's not looking great for black. Okay, let's go back to our main line. Instead of moving the knight, we can sacrifice the pawn, d4. Okay, so in return for the pawn, the black bishop on b7 has a great diagonal now. So we're gonna go for piece activity. And after the knight takes, we put the knight on d5. We have to move the knight. Then the bishop retreats, we can trade knights. This diagonal is active, as you can see. And we're gonna put also a lot of pressure on the d file and the c file. So this happens, we can rewrite the rook. And now this is hanging. If we don't, we can actually just sacrifice this rook. And the game gets a bit crazy. This game ended in a draw. Maybe it's not super important for this video. But yeah, here white has a perpetual. And yes, it's like this was crazy. So okay, something else. Maybe you might be wondering. Let's go back to our sequence. The moment we sacrifice the pawn on d4, why don't they take here? Yeah, that will lead to a disadvantage. We can just take, and we're still forking the two pieces. All right, this is white to move, and I always like to show you the best move in the position, just because that's my engineer brain. So what the computer likes is knight to e5, and it gets a little bit more you have to be really precise. You have to maneuver a lot. King to h7, rook to e3. Now the bishop hits the rook. We have to retreat. So this is what the engine shows. Okay, let's just go back. We have this positional idea, positional sacrifice, where we push d5. d5, we're hanging a pawn, right? They can take twice here. But the point is to get rid of the most active piece, the bishop. They have to take. They kind of have to take. If they ignore it, let's say here, we can just take the bishop. So this is imperative to take. Now we take back with the queen. The pawn takes. So now black is up a pawn. However, what happened when we play d4 to d5, the knight can occupy this square. Okay, we have a lot of activity. So queen goes to d7, and just to be like, there is also tactics in this position. They play queen d7, for example, because at some point we can even take this pawn on f5. So let's say if they ignore it, they go here. We can play this, takes, and we can take twice, right? So that's why they protected this square. With queen d7, they protected the rook. However, there is an interesting line where they can create some counterplay by going f4. We cannot take, they take back. We give black too much activity. So instead, we can just go the same idea, right? Knight to f5. Again, they cannot take. So if they take, this happens. They can move d4. They will have to give up material. They have to give up the pawn. So it was just like a temporary sacrifice. It's still a positional sacrifice. And let's go back to what really happened in the game. So queen to f7. Now we have a great knight, and we can also have a majority, a pawn majority on the queen side. We push c5, we push b4, and this is winning. This is definitely winning for white. Okay, here we have another example from Boris Spassky. This is going to be positional as well as it is tactical. So the knight goes to f8. Who are the defenders of the king? We always have to look for tactics when it's not super clear how they're defending the position. So here they're defending this square with the knight, and the bishop is kind of defending this diagonal. It's not super clear, but it becomes clear if we make a normal move like king to h2. So they will have to rewrite the knight, protecting this diagonal. Okay, we can still target the king, and now they can push g6. We cannot jump in with the knight, targeting or trading pieces, because they're still defending here with the bishop as well as with the knight. Perfect. So what is better? What is the best move instead of just moving the king? We have this positional sacrifice. Rook takes on a5. So this move is distracting the bishop from the defense of this diagonal, right? Okay, once they take, this is the absolute best move, the absolute best continuation possible to take. Bishop takes on h6, and of course black cannot take because we can threaten to checkmate in the next move. So the best continuation they can give is to go back, saying, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back and try to defend again. To avoid this situation, Boris Spassky had an idea to sacrifice a second rook, even though it's considered to be an inaccuracy. Black takes, and now how do you continue this game after we take here anyway? We saw it before, they cannot take the bishop. So they move the knight, knight goes to h7, we can take the pawn, and after a few moves, black resign. There is not much to be done, we can take back, king goes to h8, now we can move the knight, rook goes to g8, we can even, I think we can even take here, and then f6, rook goes, oh, sorry, here, actually black just resigned. So the continuation can be something like f6, rook goes to a1, check. There is no more checks available in the position. We can even give up this piece. This is coming. Yeah, everything is completely lost for black. This is going to be an example from Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus plays a4. And then the best move in the position, actually the second best move in the position, just to show you, is knight goes to f4. With a clear threat right now. This knight is hanging, and now this bishop is also hanging. If they take here, we can just take with 3 pieces. The game continues. Perfect. So, but there is an even better move, an strategical positional sacrifice, which is saying a5. Sacrificing the pawn, but this bishop now is kind of out of the game, right? It's not in this protecting this diagonal anymore. We can jump in now with the knight. Our knight is beautiful. We have ideas maybe even to play rook to g8, targeting this pawn. This bishop is hanging, so Magnus can never play this. This will be hanging, right? This will be a blunder. There is something else, another move that doesn't work either, but I think it's an interesting line. For example, taking this knight, we can take back, takes. This bishop is hanging, this bishop is hanging. Also terrible continuation. So what do you do exactly if you're playing white to protect from this threat? For example, this is hanging, this is also hanging. So the best move played by Magnus was knight goes to g3. Here you're saving the knight, you're also saving the bishop. Everything is good, also protects the g file. So yeah, and he found it like in 3 seconds, right? So now the game continues, h5. They cannot, now this move is possible, right? This move is possible. You don't have to worry about this bishop anymore. The game will continue. But yeah, this was the positional strategical idea, just to sacrifice the one pawn for a long-term advantage. And now we also have the bishop pair, right? We have the bishop pair after they trade the bishop later. Okay, this is white to play. This is Garry Kasparov's game. So black should really castle, right? Just get your king to safety. And after this, let's say we play a move like rook to e1. Then black has different ways to manage this. They have basically two problems. This pawn can move to d5. That is a threat. So maybe they want to take here. Another threat is h6 is hanging, right? If we ever push d5, we might be able to take this pawn. But this also happens. So, okay, I don't think we can play that immediately. So anyway, that's not even what happened in the game. Black completely disregarded this. They tried to save the pawn first by playing h6. Now we have this pawn break. We can play d5 right away. Actually, that is the best move in the position. And later, after this trade happens, we can trade here, get our rook into either of these open files. So, okay, the game will continue. These are top engine moves. Rook to d1. Now bishop goes to e6. And the piece activity that black has is very, very poor, right? So we're targeting the long diagonal here. We can even get something like bishop to c6 later. Yeah, it's winning for white. That's not what happened in the game, but yeah, we can still play this pawn break of d5. What happened was Garry prepared this move of d4 by playing rook to d1, supporting the pawn, right? Like, this is long-term thinking. Okay, and now black, they have to play something like c takes on d4. They still have this problem. They have to play this, but probably like black didn't like this continuation. After we take the pawn, this bishop is hanging, so they have to protect it. And yeah, again, these pieces are super trapped. They're cramped. It's no way to go. Okay, instead they go queen to c7. They play queen to c7, maybe trying to get out of this diagonal, the same file as the rook. But now we can play d5 anyway. This positional sacrifice. We're sacking the pawn in exchange for piece activity. And now we have tactics. The continuation is still interesting, right? It's not as important for this video, but we have bishop to b5. We're pinning the knight. And now black plays a6, thinking, oh, I'm gonna kick out this bishop. But we have this brilliant move, bishop to f4, distracting the queen from the defense of this knight. So yeah, what do you do? Where do you put the queen? They kind of have to take. Once we take here, we check, king takes, we take this bishop that was hanging, and now this is completely winning for white. Even though black is still up a pawn, we have the positional advantage as we have the open files for the rooks. And yeah, it's how do you ever play with black in this position? It's not clear. We can hit the queen here, and after a few moves, black resign. There is nothing to be done. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Check out my exclusive content for only $1, where we break down this type of position, strategical positional advantages, pawn breaks, all kinds of strategical concepts in chess. So I will see you in the next one, and take care.